So as of August 5th, 2021, I've taken in all there is to consume of the Ranma 1/2 franchise. This is the entire TV series, all 3 movies, and the OVAs. Believe it or not, this video has been over 5 years in the making, and I've restarted the series like several times before finally completing it recently, and I had a blast. This is truly one hell of a story to tell, and I'll call this the be-all end-all video for Ranma 1/2 on YouTube. Keep it locked, and I'll be back to get into it. Hopefully this video doesn't go on too long, but if it does, then watch some of it now and finish it up when you get the chance. It all started in the Qinghai province of China, in the Baiyinhar Mountains in 1980s Asia. A 16-year-old boy and his grandfather were training in the cursed spring of Jisenkyo, where they were warned that it wasn't the greatest idea. Now, this is anime, so there are no rules of following great ideas, so of course, training resumes. Boy and granddad fall into Cursed Spring, and we are given a gimmick that will go on for the next 160 episodes or so. The rest, history. So you can't really talk about any series that comes from the world Ranma comes from without talking about the elephant in the room. The creator, Rumiko Takahashi. Yes, the Rumiko Takahashi, the truest legend. Can't name too many manga artists responsible for 4 long-running shows that the people have debated for decades on which of the 4 is her true masterpiece. Urusei Yatsura, Maison, Ranma, and Inuyasha are all 4 series that have alignments between their characters and storytelling, and even the delivery technique of the various stories. But they are 4 shows that all have their own authentic appeal to different viewers. Crazy thing is, she still hasn't stopped over the years. She went on to do other shorter series that still have fans. I'm not gonna get too deep into her on this one, cause she deserves a whole nother video of her own. But I really implore all you guys that aren't up on Rumiko to please go out there and take in some more of her work. Now, if you haven't seen this gender bender martial arts phenomenon, you've come to probably the most important video you could ever watch on it. Ranma follows the misadventures of a martial arts boy and his grandfather and their new residency of the Anything Goes School of Martial Arts. Now, if you want some backstory on why Rumiko created this, she basically created this to flow along with the era of the martial arts shonen anime that were coming out in the late 80s and the early 90s. Stuff like Dragon Ball, Riki-Oh, Fist of the North Star, these were very popular at that time. And she decided to come in and give her own 2 cents and her own twist on it. And that's why Ranma came out and was so unique. Seeing as this is a generally episodic show with no real direction, I thought I'd guide you through it season by season, letting you know how enjoyable each one is and potential major moments, and maybe some not so great seasons also. This way you'll be able to note and prepare for where the highs and lows are. This is especially important because a few of these seasons are amazing, like I just said, while others definitely drop the ball. Season 1. As with most long-running shows, there's never really anything like the novelty of the first season. This is where you build your bond to the variety of personalities placed here, and have some of the most memorable moments. The first season of course introduces us to Ranma and his grandfather Genma, the Tendo sisters, which Ranma is set to marry one of them, Makane, and their father soon. Maybe just as, if not more importantly, the first batch and most enjoyable of recurring side characters debut here also. You have the idiot Kuno, who's madly infatuated with both girl Ranma and Akane, and is constantly torn between the two while trying to murder boy Ranma. You got the Tendo family's trusty chiropractor Tofu Ono, who's probably the most level-headed character or side character in the show, and Ranma's childhood rival Ryoga Hibiki debuts in this season also, and I have his alter counterpart tattooed on my inner arm. What I'll do, by the way guys, is call out certain connections I can make between other Rumiko shows that some of these characters align with. Cause Ryoga is definitely the character that inspired the personality and dynamic of Koga from Inuyasha. I mean, you look at the Ranma and Ryoga connection, you see the Koga Inuyasha connection right away. And then Akane is definitely Kagome, and self-explanatory with that one. Actually, probably all these comparisons will be Inuyasha comparisons, to be honest with you. Anyway, the final character we get introduced to in this season is the beautiful Chinese firecracker Shampoo, who's under Chinese oath by her lips to kill girl Ranma and marry boy Ranma. So you can only imagine how this goes. I love how in the English dub, she has a cute little Chinese imitated English voice. I love it. Like, I love how she talks and all of that. You'll notice that when you watch this. Yeah, man, the first batch of episodes set the stage, and then there's some fun little storylines with great action. What a lot of people don't know is that the first season of Ranma is technically a series of its own called Ranma 1/2, which, believe it or not, actually got cancelled after 18 episodes due to weak ratings. There's different speculation that have arose over the years. Some say that it was a poor time slot, and others say that it had to compete with Super Sentai at the time, but who really knows? It ran from April to September of '89, which I guess technically would make it an '80s anime. Yeah, I guess so. My favorite piece of music in the entire series, the first ending theme, a song called Platonic Suranite, sung by Kaori Sakagami, came from this season also. It's a beautiful city pop song. If you know what city pop is, look that up. That's a whole different, beast of its own. Anyway, the folk down at Studio Dean went back to the drawing board and made some tweaks, and the show came back at the end of '89 and aired as a new show called Ranma 1/2 Nettohen, which would continue on to be a smash hit. Season 2 and Season 3. So the second and third series were roughly the same mess with a few more additional characters. What I found was that they tightened up the action a bit more in this season and had some interesting battles that went on. Like the episode where Ranma and Ryoga, they go to train to learn the pressure point technique, or when the Jisenkyo correctional officers ran down on all the characters who transform when they get soaked for not taking the right action or taking the right protocol to how they should maneuver themselves. It was these two seasons that delivered the martial arts element of the series the strongest. Unfortunately though, following this season, things were to head for a downslide. The problem with watching certain things years after they air is that the show cannot age well when you consider the fact that we are in the binge era right now. I don't know too many people, myself included, who consciously decide to limit themselves to only watching like an episode or two a day of a show till they complete it. Usually we watch like 4 to 6 episodes, and in some cases a whole 12 or 13 episode series could be consumed in one single sitting. That being said, Ranma was a project that came out in the age of the after school or work stress relief in the form of sitting in front of the TV, tuning into your favorite shows. Keep in mind, engineered towards a Japanese audience at that. These shows would be a variety of different things on television and would play just one episode a day at the most, usually actually once a week. The point I'm trying to convey here is that the episodic, wacky comedy premise that has no true intention or goal for the characters to pursue in terms of a plot was clearly meant to be kept as a casual view, a weekly or daily slot for 4 to 5 years on a television network. So let me tell you how I watch Ranma. First off, I've actually seen the first 3 seasons and fell off a quarter into the 4th season like 3 times before I actually finished this. And dropping out in the 4th season is no coincidence, and I'll get to that in a sec. But for this watch of Ranma, I literally just dedicated myself to watching it all the way through. It was fun for the first 2.5 seasons. Binging is cool, it is. But at some point, the repetitive formula of a show starts to get a bit stale. And I got this theory that it doesn't just affect the at-home audience. I believe it certainly affects the quality of work from the team producing the show as well. Which leads me into Ranma's 4th season. But first, how about a lovely intermission? Go pee, grab yourself another snack out of the cupboard while you absorb the grace of this melodious composition. Enjoy, and I'll see you guys soon. Now, before we get back into the video, I'd like to advise all you guys to check out my Patreon page. There's going to be a lot of exclusive content with 3 levels of tiers, being the bronze, silver, and gold tier. Each individual tier comes with a new level of exclusive content, only for Patreon subscribed members, so be sure to check that out. But anyway, let's get back to the video. Season 4 and Season 5. Before I rip this season to shreds, I'll first call out something pretty cool about it. All my English dubbers out there might enjoy hearing Ranma hit puberty in the month break it took to transition seasons. All jokes aside, it was great finally catching on that boy Ranma was played by a pretty familiar voice actor. Salute to Richard Ian Cox, because if you know about him, he actually played Inuyasha's character on the show Inuyasha. So I found that to be a cool Easter egg. Hey, it's the same manga artist, so both shows, let's get them licensed and dubbed by the same companies. Now let me see what else he did. Okay. Dragon Tales, some Gundam, whoa. Hey, if you're Canadian watching this, remember this kid? He played him. That's what's up. Alright man, in lamest terms, I started to lose interest in watching this show when I got to this season. And it was clear to me that the writers were getting tired of working on it too. The little adventures went from fun little vibes to obnoxious and stupid stories that a lot of times didn't really make no sense, with lame attempts at comedy. There were a couple solid episodes in there, but for the most part, they pretty much were dragging it. By the time I reached season 5, I was totally over it. Most stories were straight up whack, some things even being recycled, the art was starting not even to look the same, and overall I was sorta anxious about the fact that there was still 2 more seasons to watch. These 2 seasons to me are the sole reason for most people giving up on Ranma. Talked to a few people over the years and they tell me the episodes that they're at, and when I look it up, it falls right into season 4 or season 5. Now, I haven't seen the first 2 shows, but this seems to be a common problem with a lot of long-running Rumiko shows and simply long-running episodic shows as a whole. It happened with Inuyasha, it happened with Detective Conan, it's a common trend. Season 6 and Season 7. Actually, to be fair, the 2-parter series finale, I thought it was the best and only good thing since season 3. It tackles one minor question you might have asked yourself about Ranma's maternal side throughout the series, and it was pretty dramatic and happened to hold my attention pretty well. But still, why did it have to take 95 more episodes for me to get that? So basically, the series to me is almost unwatchable beyond episode 64, but luckily there's a bunch of extra Ranma animation to make up for it. The best part is that this group of content conceived the best animation and music of anything Ranma had to offer, TV show included. Towards the ending of the TV series, we saw the first movie, Big Trouble in Nekonran, China, which came out in November of 91, and Ni Hao My Concubine, which dropped August of 92. Literally a month before the show ended. Both were a little over an hour long, the first one being about Akane accidentally holding a scroll that Prince Kirin of the 7 Lucky Gods shows up at the dojo for, making her be his bride, according to him. The crew ends up on a journey to mainland China to save her. I won't tell no lie, I really enjoyed this movie and thought that the overall enjoyment level of the story was pretty valid. It was also nice to see a more serious tone taken with Ranma and Akane's romantic tension. The name of this film is actually a play on the American film Big Trouble in Little China from 1986. The second film takes it to the islands. After the crew winds up shipwrecked, the women start going missing and it turns out that Toma was behind it all. Toma's another creep looking for a bride. He summoned them all back to Togenkyo. Toma is the master of illusions and runs with his blended human/animal minions. When they get to Togenkyo, they discover a lot of other women were captured in the building also. The twist was that they didn't end up being tortured or anything like you'd expect. They're actually treated like royalty, like princesses and queens, but gotta participate in the martial arts marriage contest to win the heart of the prince. The world built for this one was incredible, and Togenkyo was a solid setting. Another great entry. Side note, this one based Toma and his henchmen off the classic Japanese folklore Momotaro, or Peach Boy as we know over in the West. Both these first two movies provide awesome filler with stunning visuals along with stellar action. After that, the Ranma franchise went silent for about a year, but would bleed out a bit more through a few OVAs and one more shorter film. The first OVA was a 6-episode feature. Came out October of '93. After that, in the summer of '94, came the third and final movie, Ranma 1/2 Super Indiscriminate Decisive Battle, Team Ranma versus the Legendary Phoenix. Damn, what a lengthy title. Which should have been like a special or something because it was just shy of a half an hour long. The second OVA, titled Ranma 1/2 Special, was a 2-episode run that released in the middle of December, the same year as the previous movie. And the final 3-episode OVA of the OG Ranma franchise, known as Ranma 1/2 Super, came out fall of 1995 and will put to sleep the Ranma medium in animation form by January of 1996. It wouldn't see another animation until 12 years later, when a quick half-hour OVA will come out in 2008 called Ranma 1/2 Nightmare, Incense of Spring Sleep. By now, it's been over 10 minutes of content that you've been watching, so I'd say it's safe to assume there's no need to explain to you how beautiful this show is aesthetically. So now we're talking about the whole TV series and movies and everything like that. Gets to the point sometimes that I totally forget that the entire show was completed airing by 1992. Majority of the cream of the crop in art and animation here took place in the first 3 seasons, which was 89 to 90. It blows me away how long ago that was, and it still looks great. At times, I actually keep forgetting when this was made because it feels 5 years younger than it actually is. While I can't recall seeing anything that was groundbreaking in the aesthetic appeal, there are so many moments to appreciate visually. The sketch and coloring of the backgrounds were done well in pocket to fit the tone of the manga it came from, as well as the actual tone of the series that it was trying to set. For a bubbly, lighthearted comedy series, it would probably be a good idea not to have a darker theme going on here like in Trust and Betrayal or something like that. That's for the TV series alone. The movies and OVAs, on the other hand, take it to an even higher level, obviously from having more finances to play around with. The music of Ranma 1/2 accounts for a majority of the attachments that a lot of people have to this series. You may not like it past a certain amount of episodes due to redundancy, or you may not like certain characters, or maybe comedy just isn't your forte and you would have preferred it center around more action or drama. Whatever it is, you appreciate this soundtrack. The anime has a dozen opening and closing themes, some better than others, but each and every one memorable in their own respects, along with catchy background tunes that play throughout the actual show. They take nods from both ancient Japanese and Chinese traditional music, and long after you finish the session of binging episodes, I'll probably parlay on good money to tell you that most of these will stay ringing in your brain hours after. Lastly, on some of the highs, some of these characters were just really easy to fall in love with. They all got their own nuances to their personalities, and certain ones are just glorious to the retinas of one's eyes. I mean, just look at Shampoo's design. The one major flaw with Ranma as a whole is that it's just way too repetitive. I touched on this when discussing season 4 and 5, but I'll just put that in here quickly to solidify it as a flaw about the series, just generally speaking. To be fair, you already should know what you're getting yourself into if you decide to commit to watching this entire thing. But honestly, it's 160 something episodes with films and extra content of a constant back and forth of multiple characters changing form when they get wet, with over-the-top comedy and plots that don't really go anywhere. So that's the main flaw. Also, this may be pretty subjective, but I know that personally I'm not the biggest comedy fan when it comes to anime. I must admit, a lot of the goofy scenes in anime have a tendency to piss me the hell off, because personally the typical humor found in this stuff is not the type of gags that get me going. And that could pose an issue for many people because this is a pretty big investment of your time. 161 episodes. If you're not a comedy fan, that's something to consider before you pick this up. Aside from drop-offs in animation and art sometimes, and a certain romantic dynamic never seeing itself evolve to where it kept teasing the viewer to where it was gonna go, that's basically the major nuances. If any of that is a deal breaker for you, I'd advise you to go in with the expectation not to watch it beyond the first 3 seasons, because quite frankly, you won't miss anything if you never see anything else after that. But check out those 2 first movies though. For everyone else, Don't think for a second that I'm trying to steer you away from this show. This is just a forewarning for certain people who can get tired of a show's formula real easily. For others, you'll eat this stuff up and not care how redundant it gets or how corny it is. So ultimately, why watch Ranma 1/2? Cause Ranma is the epitome of slice of life, that's why. I know a lot of the action-based elements are unrealistic and sometimes the show can even incorporate sci-fi, but it's more about what there is to gain mentally. The show embodies the spirit of drifting through life, and the fact of the matter is, anything can happen randomly on any given day. One day they're in China, another day they get a random unexpected visitor to the house, another day something crazy is happening to one of the characters, but at the end of the day, it's a great series with fun adventures. The home media for Ranma in the West has been rebranded and packaged a few times over the years, making it a bit easy to get your hands on. Personally, I have the original thin pack sets Viz put out in the early 2000s, but they re-released them on DVD and Blu-ray and more economical sets because those ones are out of print. The movies and OVAs had releases also, separately, but would all come bundled together in recent years in one set. Aside from starting off as a manga, having a bunch of animations and specials and things like that, there were various Ranma 1/2 games, 15 to be exact, and potentially more that only the Japanese would be privy to. I would normally sit here and list out each one and each year for the people who are really nerds like me and want to see the entire ins and outs of media for things, but honestly, none of them were very popular or seemed to be very good. But if you're into that, there's tons for you to sink your teeth into. Finally, on behalf of the Satome Tendo family, I'm Rekka, and we've cleared yet another episode. And thanks for sticking around if you've made it this far. I went through a lot to put this one out, but I felt like Ranma deserved an in-depth overview as far as the franchise as a whole. Like the video, comment down below what y'all want to see next. I'm out. Thanks for watching. Anime Backwhen.